mistake here, but kind of, almost.
Great. All right. Let's do this. All right, welcome back. So today we are working on my dad's tractor again. I'm doing a bunch of updates to it. So I'm putting a 2-inch lift on the front. I put power steering in it. All of that you've seen me do on my other videos. I'll put a link to the 2-inch lift like right here somewhere. And then power steering one, I did the power steering and air conditioning on mine. This one was just a straight bolt-on thing. I only did power steering on this. Like literally it was bracket, pump, steering box, steering shaft, and reservoir. So that was it. I still have to get a belt for it, but then that's power steering. So this was off an 8-valve donor. 16 valves, a little bit different, but again, look at all the details on this video. So let's see. Fuel pump. Now the other thing we have to do on this is a fuel pump. So a couple years ago when I got this running, I didn't put the fuel pump in it. I pulled it out, shook it a little bit, and it started running again. I know it needs a fuel pump because if you walk around the back here, I've been playing with it a little bit, done a little bit of troubleshooting, which is very important to do when you're working on stuff. You pull out your driver's side tail light here. Make sure you have a good ground. My ground was kind of not great, so I fixed that. Make sure you have a good ground. There's a pink and black wire right here. Can't see it very well. I'll bring it in here. So right here, there's a pink and black wire. That is your fuel pump wire. So to troubleshoot your fuel pump, whether your fuel pump's working or not, because a common issue with these, I'm gonna move so that, oh, stupid thing. Anyway, so a common issue with these things is that the capacitors on the ECU will go bad, and so it won't tell your fuel pump to start running. A lot of people just think straight up, oh, it's fuel pump's bad, when it's actually the ECU. So, you know, when you're troubleshooting these things, if you have a no start, you know, fuel pump, best thing to do is come back here, pull your tail light out. It's 2 screws right here, these little buggers. It's 2 screws. Put 12 volts to your pink and black wire here, ground here, 12 volts there, and you'll hear the fuel pump run. If fuel pump runs, you don't have a fuel pump issue. Fuel pump doesn't run, you got a fuel pump issue. So I'll show you how to drop to change that today. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do on this thing is disconnect the battery. I got one of those fancy quick connect ones. All right. And then, sorry, I've got you guys on a tripod, so it's, anyway, kind of cumbersome to move around. So, let's shrink the tripod down and I'll show you what we're doing underneath. So underneath here, if you look up on top, you got a few hoses to disconnect. You've got, oh, let's see if this light will stay somewhere. You got a couple vent hoses here. You've got a vent to your filler cap right here. You got your filler cap right over here you got to disconnect. And then right here is your fuel pump, your fuel filter is right here. So we'll disconnect 2 banjo fittings on that. We'll get that disconnected. And some of that may be easier when you drop the tank down a little bit. There's some wires up on top of there we got to disconnect too. But when you drop the tank down a little bit, it might be easier then. We'll see when we're doing this. So there's 4 bolts to hold this tank in. One here, other side, and then at the back, right. Let's move this around this way. You got a bolt right here that you can see. Let's see if this works. Right here, there's a bolt, and same thing on the other side. So 4 bolts, fuel tank drops right out, and as you're dropping it, you'll have to climb around the front and unhook some wires. But pretty straightforward. We'll work on that, get it, see if we get this thing dropped down. Then we get to see what kind of carnage we got inside the tank. This job isn't the most fun job in the world. So we got our hoses unhooked over here. We got that one, that one, that one, and I got my clamp off of the filler neck over here. And I also, you can see it, if you can see it from over here, here's the fuel filter, and I got the line pulled off of it. So we're ready to drop the tank out. I've got this bolt right up here loosened up. The one on the other side is all loose. A couple threads holding it in, and then I've got this one here on the back is taken out. Yeah, I got a fancy little window in the bumper so I can get my bolt out. You know, probably not most ideal, but it works. I did the same thing over here. Trying to move around and show you everything. It's kind of a pain because I'm sitting on my creeper. Anyway, so the floor jack, you can see the floor jack here is up right under the center of the gas tank and the pan comes down with the gas tank. So right now all that's left is I gotta pull this bolt here out and that one over there out, and the whole thing drops down. So I'll set you guys up over here, see if you can watch me drop this tank. That bolt's out. Chuck my socket across the room. Great. Now let's go ahead and drop this tank down just a little bit. Drop down about that far. I'm gonna start prying this filler neck off. It's already hanging us up. All right, let's see if we can get this filler neck off. Come on. Moving a little bit. You need to drop it just a smidgen more. Got a bigger screwdriver. A little more leverage on this thing. There we go. That filler neck is as good as off. Okay, so filler neck's off. We're looking across the top of this thing. I don't see anything getting tight. You can start to see our wires back there at the back. Leave that. I think it's light. Let's just stick it right there. Okay, let's drop this tank down further. I'm getting hung up on this bar. We welded a massive hitch on the back of this thing for when we had the snowblower on it. So I'm getting hung up on that hitch. Okay, don't tip it over. Okay. Now we're spilling. All right. Check our wires up on top. Tell you what, fuel pumps only go out when you got a full tank of fuel. Okay, so tank's down. It's down, but we still haven't disconnected those wires. A little thing here I'll show you is there's a little clip right here that retains that wire. If you take the wires out of that clip, you can drop your tank pretty much all the way down and get you space to unplug them up here. Where do they unplug? They unplug somewhere. I'll figure it out. Looks like they unplug right here. Right where I've got them zip tied back to the frame from when I had to do this last time. And that's unplugged. So everything's disconnected from the tank. Let's pull it out. We're trying to get this tank out of here. All right. This thing's mostly full of gas. Of course it is. It's the only time you ever have to change a fuel pump. Yeah. This is your fuel pump. This is your fuel. This is your fuel gauge. So, one thing you want to check when you have it all out is check all of these little rubber hoses. On mine, the reason fuel pump went out on mine is because some little squirrel came in here and chewed on these hoses, and there's a whole bunch of sand at the bottom of the tank. So you want to check those. These all are still have all their little pieces on them. So anyway, we're gonna probably go eat dinner and then pull the fuel pump out and trade it out. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's pull the pump. I know most people say not to do this with an impact driver. If you do it with an impact driver, make sure you put lots of weight down on your drill when you spin them out. Get it in there seated, spin it right out. There it is. Okay. All right. Got all our screws out. Slip those in here so don't lose them. And before we can pull this thing, that one there, and that one there. All right, I'm gonna grab my drain pan here. It's nice and pristine clean. No, it's not. We're gonna pull this pump out of here. Oh boy. Boy, this is... There it is. Pull this pump. There it is. Yeah. Something tells me I need a new pre-filter on that thing. So we'll get one of those. I don't have one. I know I don't have one. I do have a pump. I don't have a pre-filter. Turns out the fuel pump I had wasn't the right one. It wouldn't fit in the holder here. So I went to the store, went over to O'Reilly's, and I asked for a fuel pump for a 1990 Geo Tracker. Of course, the computer said they had one. Brought it out, and it wouldn't work with this. So I asked for a fuel pump for a 1990 Suzuki Sidekick. They had one. It was half the price. And it will work. So the moral of the story is, bring your parts with you to the parts store so you can verify that the parts are going to work before you purchase them. I have purchased one of these before on Rock Auto, and it worked. I had to do some I had to do some finagling to get it to work, but it did work. Anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to say is just make sure you get the right, make sure you bring your stuff with you. I brought this piece with me to the parts store. I brought my old fuel pump with me, and I just made sure everything worked right there in the store rather than having to go back and forth to the store 4 times trying to make something work. My screen on there. I just had to give it a good old hee-yah and a bit of a tap-tap-taparoo, and it went right on. Now, I got my hose on there. We're gonna get the fuel pump in here, so we're gonna turn it the right way. We're gonna start sliding her up into the hose here. Come on. It's a bit tight. I think that one might have to bend out of the way. Little dealy whopper on here that's kind of in my way. Let's bend it out of the way. Take this thing. Just slowly slide her on in there. Oh boy, that right there is in. We'll take this and we'll fold it back down over here because I think it's supposed to be there to hold that in from bouncing out. And there you go. Take our little clamps here. Put them down here. Let's put these things away from the plug. Okay. We're all tightened up. Couple things you want to check. Just make sure you're not touching anything. So the positive terminal comes down here. It's not touching here. It's only touching where it's supposed to be touching. Negative terminal is only touching where it's supposed to be touching. And yeah, this thing is ready to go back in the tank. So let's go ahead and slide her in there. Get you pointed down so you can see what I'm doing over here. So there we go. One side in. Carefully get the other side in. That side in. Drop it down. There we go. We're gonna get our bolts all back in this thing. So we're gonna get our bolts back in this thing, and you know what they say is assembly is reverse of disassembly. So put it back together, slide it up in there. But yeah, so just one thing to be, I guess something to be aware of as far as gas goes on these things is there's a check ball on the inlet. Bring it over here, I'll show it to you. So right here on the inlet of this, if you look down in there, see that, oh, there we go. See that ball? I guess it's a rollover thing, but basically you can't siphon the gas out of these. You can't get a pipe or a tube, hose, whatever, down around that dealer whopper. So if you've got a full tank of gas and you gotta change your fuel pump, you gotta drop the tank with a full tank of gas. Unless you pull your filler neck off. This thing does, turn you down here so you can see what I'm doing. This thing does slide out. The other option is to pull your filler neck off. Anyway, and that thing you can pull it out. And then you could siphon your gas out, I guess. But just like that, fuel pump's changed. So we'll slide the tank back in and we'll be done. That's what we got. I'll show it to you when I'm done. It's all back in. It's all hooked up. That was a pain, but Whew, it's done. I would recommend draining the gas out of the tank before putting it back up, but I didn't. Anyway, so I'll show you here. All the stuff's hooked back in. Lines are hooked back up. Tank's all bolted in. Everything else. So I think it's time to go start it up and see if it runs. So let's go get the battery hooked back up and we'll fire it up. All right, it's all hooked back up. Let's see if it'll start. Clear prop. Fired right up. So, fuel pump works. Fuel pump was the problem. I knew that. Yeah, that's it. That's what it takes to change the fuel pump. Thanks for watching.